A 12-year-old girl walked into Judge Caprio's courtroom wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than most people spend in a month. She had earbuds in, phone in hand, and an attitude that made every adult in the room shift uncomfortably in their seats. She wasn't there because she'd done anything wrong. She was there because her mother had to be. But what started as a routine traffic hearing became something nobody in that courtroom would forget. Something in the girl's behaviour suggested this wasn't just typical preteen attitude, it was something deeper, and Judge Caprio was about to address it in a way that would change everything. I am Frederick, and I walk you through courtroom moments that reveal something true about human nature. Today's story isn't just about disrespect or consequences, it's about what happens when someone finally draws a line. If you appreciate stories where real accountability meets real change, go ahead and tap that like button. It was a Wednesday afternoon in Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio sat at the bench reviewing the docket. The case looked standard on paper. Sarah Martinez, 34 years old, 3 unpaid parking tickets, expired vehicle registration. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would suggest what was coming. The bailiff called the case and the doors opened. Sarah Martinez entered first. She wore scrubs, the kind nurses wear after long shifts. Her shoulders were hunched forward with exhaustion. Her hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes carried the weariness of someone who hadn't slept properly in years. She walked toward the bench slowly, hesitant, like someone who knows they're in the wrong but doesn't have the means to fix it. Behind her came Madison. Madison Martinez was 12, but she moved like someone who had never been told no and actually heard it. Head to toe designer labels, expensive sneakers that look brand new, a jacket with a logo that screams status, gold bracelets catching the light. But it wasn't the clothes that grabbed everyone's attention, it was the energy she carried. Pure entitlement. Her face was buried in her phone, thumbs moving fast across the screen, white earbuds dangling. She didn't look up when she entered, didn't acknowledge the judge, the bailiff, or anyone watching. She existed in her own world, and that world clearly didn't include this courtroom. Her mother glanced back with a look that mixed embarrassment and resignation, the look of someone who'd fought this battle too many times and lost. The people sitting in the gallery noticed immediately. An older woman leaned to her companion and whispered something, shaking her head. A man in a work uniform crossed his arms, face already showing disapproval. Even the court clerk glanced up, eyebrows raised. The room had an energy now, a collective awareness that something was off. Judge Caprio watched them approach. His expression stayed neutral, professional, but his eyes were sharp. He had been on the bench long enough to read people, to see past the surface. What he saw concerned him. A tired mother in medical scrubs who couldn't afford basic expenses. A daughter, dripping in luxury, completely disconnected from the struggle right beside her. He cleared his throat. "Miss Martinez, please approach the bench." Before Sarah could speak, Madison's voice cut through the room. "Can we hurry this up? I have plans." Loud enough for everyone to hear, spoken with casual entitlement, like her time genuinely mattered more than everyone else's. She still hadn't looked up from her phone. Sarah's face flushed red. She turned slightly, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Madison, please, not now." Judge Caprio's posture shifted. He leaned forward slightly, hands folding on the bench. "Young lady, I'm speaking with your mother. Please wait quietly." A simple request, calm authority. But Madison didn't remove her earbuds, didn't even look up. Instead, she let out an audible sigh, dramatic and exaggerated, designed to communicate maximum irritation with minimum effort. She shifted her weight from one sneaker to the other, body language screaming impatience. The gallery reacted immediately. Whispers rippled through the benches. A woman in the back shook her head in disbelief. The man in the work uniform tightened his crossed arms, jaw clenched. Even the bailiff raised his eyebrows. This level of disrespect wasn't common, especially not from a child. Judge Caprio noted every reaction. He returned his attention to Sarah, but made a mental note this wouldn't be his last interaction with the girl standing behind her mother. He addressed Sarah directly. "Miss Martinez, you're here regarding 3 unpaid parking tickets totaling $450, plus an expired vehicle registration. Can you explain your situation?" Sarah took a breath, hands clasped tightly. knuckles white. Your Honour, I work as a registered nurse at Providence General. I've been picking up extra shifts wherever I can, and I work weekends catering to make ends meet. The tickets just piled up while I was trying to keep everything else together. My registration expired because I couldn't afford the renewal and the repair work at the same time. Her voice was steady but quiet. The voice of someone who'd explained their financial struggles too many times. I'm not making excuses, Your Honour. I know I should have handled this sooner. I'm asking for time to pay. $50 a month, if that's acceptable. Judge Caprio nodded, expression softening as he reviewed her file. Then Madison's voice sliced through the moment. Oh my God, Mum, just pay it so we can leave. This is taking forever. Every head turned. The interruption was so brazenly disrespectful that for a moment, complete silence. Even the clerk stopped typing. Sarah's face went from embarrassed to mortified. She turned to her daughter, voice sharp but desperate. Madison Marie, I need you to be quiet right now, please. Madison finally looked up from her phone, but only to roll her eyes dramatically. Whatever. She drew the word out. 3 syllables, each one dripping with contempt. Judge Caprio's expression hardened. His voice stayed calm, but there was still underneath. Young lady, I need you to remain silent while I'm speaking with your mother. This is a courtroom, not a social gathering. Madison looked directly at the judge for the first time. She didn't remove her earbuds, didn't put her phone away. Instead, she met his gaze with a smirk that suggested she found this entire proceeding beneath her. Fine, she said, one word loaded with insolence. Then she looked back down at her phone, thumbs resuming their rapid movement. The gallery erupted in whispers. A woman near the front muttered just loud enough to be heard, "Unbelievable." An older man shook his head slowly, face showing the kind of disapproval that comes from a different generation. It's one thing to be frustrated, it's another to publicly disrespect the person sacrificing everything for you. I've seen entitled behaviour before, but this felt particularly cold. Judge Caprio let the moment settle before returning to Sarah. Miss Martinez, you mentioned you're a nurse. How long have you been working in healthcare? Sarah seemed grateful for the redirect, eager to move past her daughter's behaviour. 12 years, Your Honour. I work in the emergency department. It's demanding, but I love helping people. The judge nodded. And you're raising your daughter alone? Sarah hesitated. An entire story lived in that hesitation. Yes, Your Honour. Her father and I divorced 3 years ago. It's just the 2 of us now. Before the judge could ask another question, Madison interjected again, still not looking up. Not really alone. I see Dad all the time. He actually has money. The statement hung in the air, cruel in its casual delivery. Sarah's shoulders slumped forward like she'd been physically struck. Her eyes glistened with tears. She fought to hold back. The gallery's reaction was immediate. Gasps, sharp intakes of breath. The woman who'd muttered earlier sat forward, hand pressed to her chest. The older man stared at Madison with open disbelief. Judge Caprio's hands tightened on the edge of the bench. Miss Martinez, he said to Madison, voice dropping to a tone that made everyone sit up straighter. That comment was disrespectful and cruel. You will not speak that way about your mother in this courtroom or anywhere else in my presence. Madison shrugged, supreme indifference. I'm just saying the truth. Mum works all the time and we're still broke. Dad works and actually has nice things. It's just facts. Sarah made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob that she tried to swallow. She turned away from her daughter, facing the judge fully, as if physically blocking Madison might somehow block the pain. Your Honour, I apologise for my daughter's behaviour. This isn't how I raised her. Judge Caprio's gaze shifted between mother and daughter. Clearly someone is raising her differently now. Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Her father fills her head with ideas about success and money. He buys her things I can't afford, makes me look like a failure in her eyes. Madison scoffed loudly. You make yourself look like a failure, Mum. I don't need Dad's help with that. The courtroom exploded. Multiple people gasped audibly. A woman in the back stood up, face flushed with anger, before her companion pulled her down. The bailiff stepped forward, hand moving instinctively toward his position by the judge's bench, sensing escalation. Judge Caprio raised one hand. The room quieted immediately. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decades on the bench and the authority of someone who had seen every kind of human behaviour. Miss Martinez, he said, addressing Madison directly, eyes locked on hers with intensity that finally made her look up and pay attention. "You have just crossed a line in my courtroom." The silence felt heavy. Everyone in the gallery leaned forward slightly, sensing something significant was about to happen. Judge Caprio's gaze stayed fixed on Madison, who had finally stopped looking at her phone, though she still held it like a security blanket. The smirk was still there, but it had lost some of its confidence. "Your Honour," Sarah began, voice shaking, "I can handle this at home. Please, let's just discuss the tickets." Judge Caprio raised his hand gently, eyes never leaving Madison. "Miss Martinez, your mother is trying to protect you right now. The question is whether you deserve that protection." Madison's phone suddenly buzzed, vibration audible in the quiet. Without thinking, she looked down at the screen. Her face lit up. "It's my dad," she announced, as if this information mattered. Judge Caprio's voice cut through with surgical precision. "Put that phone away immediately." Madison's thumb hovered over the screen. "But he's calling me." "I said immediately." No anger in the judge's voice. Something more powerful than anger. Absolute authority. Madison hesitated, then made a choice that would define the rest of this hearing. She answered the call. "Dad? Yeah, I'm stuck in court with Mum. She's being all dramatic about parking tickets again." The courtroom erupted. Multiple voices rose at once. The bailiff moved forward quickly. Judge Caprio's hand came down on the gavel once. Sharp crack. Room silent instantly. "Miss Martinez, end that call right now and hand your phone to the bailiff." Madison pulled the phone away from her ear, staring at the judge with genuine shock. "You can't just take my phone. That's like illegal or something." "In this courtroom, I can and I will." "Bailiff." The bailiff extended his hand, expression neutral but firm. Madison clutched the phone to her chest. "This is theft. My dad's a lawyer. Here, sue you." Judge Caprio's eyebrows rose slightly. "Your father is a lawyer?" Madison nodded vigorously, seeing this as her trump card. "Yes, and he said I never have to let anyone take my property without cause." Something shifted in the judge's eyes. Understanding, or confirmation of a suspicion. He looked at Sarah. "Miss Martinez, is your ex-husband an attorney?" Sarah nodded miserably, face in her hands. "Yes, Your Honour. He practices corporate law downtown." "And does he pay child support as ordered by the court?" Sarah's voice was barely audible. "He's supposed to pay $800 a month. He's 8 months behind." The gallery's reaction was immediate and loud. Whispers turned to exclamations. A man in the second row said clearly, "8 months?" A woman nearby added, "But he can buy her all that." She gestured toward Madison's expensive outfit. Judge Caprio picked up a pen and made a note. 8 months. That's $6,400. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. "And yet your daughter just mentioned he has money for nice things." Sarah's voice broke. "He lives in a penthouse downtown with his new wife, takes Madison shopping every other weekend, buys her whatever she wants. I can't compete with that, and he knows it." Madison's face flushed. "You're just jealous because Dad upgraded." The words were meant to wound. They hit perfectly. Sarah made a sound like she'd been punched. Several people in the gallery gasped. One woman stood, pointing at Madison before the bailiff gestured for her to sit. "What do you think a parent should do when their child crosses that line? Drop your thoughts in the comments." Judge Caprio's voice, quiet but filling every corner of the room. "Miss Martinez, give the phone to the bailiff now, or I will hold you in contempt of court." Madison's bravado finally cracked. "I'm 12. You can't hold a kid in contempt." "Watch me." The bailiff took another step closer. Madison looked at her mother for help, but Sarah had turned away, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Reality finally penetrated Madison's armour. With exaggerated reluctance and a dramatic sigh, she handed the phone to the bailiff. "This is so unfair," she muttered. Judge Caprio accepted the phone from the bailiff and placed it on his bench. "Now, Miss Martinez, you're going to stand there quietly while I speak with your mother. If you interrupt again, there will be consequences you won't like. Do you understand?" Madison crossed her arms tightly, but nodded. "I asked you a question. Do you understand?" "Yes," Madison said through gritted teeth. "Yes, what?" Madison's eyes flashed with anger, but she recognized she was losing. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Caprio returned his attention to Sarah, expression softening considerably. Miss Martinez, tell me about your situation, not the tickets, your life. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't want to burden the court with my problems, Your Honour. You're not burdening anyone. I'm asking, so please, tell me. Sarah took a shaky breath. After the divorce, I got the house, but I also got the mortgage and all the debt. My ex got his career and his freedom. I work 60 hours a week between the hospital and catering. I'm trying to save for Madison's college, keep food on the table, maintain a car that's falling apart. The tickets, I just couldn't pay them when they came. There was always something more urgent. Electric bill, Madison's school fees, medical expenses. And your ex-husband pays nothing? Sarah shook her head. He claims his new wife is pregnant and he needs to save money for the baby. His lawyer keeps filing motions for reduced support. We've been in family court 4 times in 2 years. I can't afford to keep fighting him. Judge Caprio made another note. And during this time, he's been taking your daughter shopping, buying her expensive clothes? Sarah nodded. Every other weekend, she comes home with bags of things I could never afford. Designer clothes, jewellery, the latest phone, and she looks at me like I'm the failure because I can't give her those things, because I'm too busy working to keep the lights on. Judge Caprio sat back, fingers steepled. Then he lowered his hands and looked directly at Madison. Miss Martinez, come stand directly in front of my bench. Madison didn't move immediately. Mum, she said, voice taking on a whining quality, tell him I don't have to. Sarah didn't turn around, kept her back to her daughter, shoulders still trembling. Do what the judge says, Madison. Her voice was flat, empty. Madison shuffled forward reluctantly, expensive sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. She stopped a few feet from the bench, refusing to make eye contact. Judge Caprio waited until she looked up. When their eyes met, he spoke in a tone neither harsh nor gentle, but carrying the weight of someone who had seen too many lives damaged by the same patterns. Madison, do you know what your mother does at her job? Madison shrugged. She's a nurse. I asked if you know what she does, not what her title is. Madison's face showed irritation. She takes care of sick people or whatever. I don't know the details. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. She saves lives. She holds the hands of dying patients. She works holidays and weekends. She comes home exhausted and still has to take care of you. And what do you do, Madison? What do you contribute? The question hung there. Madison's mouth opened and closed. I'm in middle school. I don't have to contribute anything. I'm a kid. Interesting. You're a kid when it comes to responsibility, but you're old enough to judge your mother's worth based on her bank account. Madison's face flushed. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You told this entire courtroom that your father has money and your mother doesn't, implying that makes him better, makes him more successful, makes him more worthy of respect. Madison looked away. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? Silence. Madison stared at the floor. When was the last time you thanked your mother for anything? Madison's voice was small now, defensive. I don't know. Why does that matter? Because gratitude matters. Respect matters. Your mother is standing here humiliated because she couldn't pay parking tickets while working 60 hours a week to support you. And you're standing here acting like she's an inconvenience. Madison's arms tightened across her chest. She said nothing, jaw clenched. Sometimes the hardest lesson is realizing how wrong you've been. I genuinely hope this girl was listening, because what came next would either break through or bounce off completely. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Let me tell you something about your father, Madison. A man who is 8 months behind on child support but takes you shopping for designer clothes isn't teaching you about success. He's teaching you about manipulation. He's buying your loyalty because it's easier than being a real parent. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Madison's face had gone pale. That's not true. He loves me. I'm sure he does. But love without responsibility is just empty words. Your mother loves you too. The difference is she's actually sacrificing for you every single day. Madison's voice cracked slightly. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like. You're right. I don't know what it's like to be 12 with divorced parents, but I do know what it's like to watch children grow into adults who have no concept of respect, gratitude, or empathy because no one taught them those things when it mattered. And right now, Madison, you're on that path. A single tear rolled down Madison's cheek. She quickly wiped it away, trying to maintain her tough exterior. Judge Caprio's voice softened slightly, but remained firm. Here's what's going to happen. Your mother came here asking for help with tickets she can't afford because she's been too busy keeping your life together. I'm going to reduce her total fines to $50 and give her 90 days to pay. Madison's face showed the beginning of relief. Can we go now? No, because you're not done here. What? You may not be the one with the traffic citation, but you've shown such profound disrespect in this courtroom that I'm making a judgment call about your character and your future. Madison's eyes widened. What does that mean? It means I'm ordering you to complete 40 hours of community service. You can't do that. I'm just a kid. You keep saying that. But you haven't been acting like a child. You've been acting like someone who thinks the world owes them something. Community service will teach you otherwise. Madison turned to her mother desperately. Mum, tell him he can't do this. Sarah finally turned around. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something new in her expression, something harder, more resolved. Your Honour, she said quietly, I support your decision completely. Madison's mouth dropped open. Mum, what are you doing? Sarah took a step toward her daughter. For years, Madison, I've made excuses for your behaviour. I've told myself it's the divorce, it's your father's influence, it's your age. But today, watching you disrespect me in front of all these people, I realised I've been failing you by not setting boundaries. Judge Caprio is right. You need to learn what real work looks like. What real struggle looks like. Madison's voice rose to a near shout. I can't believe you're doing this to me. You're supposed to be on my side. I am on your side, Sarah said, voice steady despite the tears. That's exactly why I'm agreeing with this, because letting you continue down this path isn't love, it's neglect. Judge Caprio nodded approvingly at Sarah before returning his attention to Madison. You'll complete your 40 hours at Sunset Nursing Home. You'll help care for elderly patients who have no family visiting them. People who work their entire lives and are now alone. You'll do it every Saturday for the next 10 weeks, 4 hours each day. Madison's face was streaked with tears, armour completely shattered. This isn't fair. Fair? Your mother working 2 jobs while your father lives in luxury isn't fair. Your mother going without so you can have school supplies isn't fair. But consequences for your behaviour, that's not about fairness, that's about accountability. And Madison, accountability is something you're about to learn intimately. The gallery sat in stunned silence, many nodding, some wiping their own eyes. Before you leave this courtroom, you owe your mother an apology. Madison stood frozen, face wet with tears, body language completely different from the arrogant girl who walked in. Can't I just apologise at home? No, you disrespected her publicly. You humiliated her in front of strangers. You'll apologise the same way. Madison looked at her mother, whose face showed a mixture of pain and something else, something that might be hope. The courtroom was so quiet, the air conditioning became noticeable, a low hum filling the space. Madison took a shaky breath. Mum, I'm sorry. Judge Caprio's voice was gentle but unyielding. Say it like you mean it, Madison. Look at her. Really look at her and say what you're sorry for. Madison's face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, taking mascara with them in dark streaks. She took a step toward her mother, hands trembling. Mum, she began, voice breaking, I'm sorry for what I said about you, about Dad having money and you being broke. I'm sorry for being embarrassed of you. I'm sorry for not seeing how hard you work. Her voice dropped to barely audible. I'm sorry for making you feel like you're not enough, because you are. You're more than enough. Sarah's face transformed. The hardness melted away, replaced by a tender maternal expression. She opened her arms and Madison collapsed into them, sobbing against her mother's shoulder. The expensive jacket and designer label seemed ridiculous now. Costumes on a child who suddenly looked very young and very lost. Sarah wrapped her arms around her daughter, one hand stroking her hair, the automatic gesture of maternal comfort that transcends anger and hurt. I love you, Sarah whispered. I've always loved you, even when you make it hard, especially when you make it hard. The gallery watched with tissues pressed to eyes. The woman who'd gasped earlier was crying openly. The man in the work uniform had his hand over his mouth, eyes glistening. Even the bailiff looked away for a moment, blinking rapidly. Judge Caprio watched the embrace with an expression that suggested this was why he did this job. Not for the fines or regulations, but for these moments when something broken begins to mend. He allowed them a long moment before speaking again, voice soft. "Miss Martinez, look at me." Madison pulled back from her mother, wiping her face, leaving smears of makeup across her cheeks. "You're going to start your community service this Saturday. The coordinator at Sunset Nursing Home is expecting you at 9 in the morning. You'll work until 1 in the afternoon. You'll do this for 10 consecutive Saturdays." Madison nodded, unable to speak. "And Madison, one more thing." "Yes, Your Honour?" "This isn't a punishment designed to hurt you. It's an opportunity to grow into someone better than who you were today. The people you're going to help, they have lived full lives. They've worked hard. They've struggled. They have wisdom you need. If you're smart, you'll listen to them." Madison nodded again, something in her expression suggesting the message had landed. "Thank you, Your Honour," she said quietly. 6 weeks passed. The courtroom was busy on a Thursday afternoon when Sarah Martinez appeared again, this time without a citation, without a legal obligation. She had asked to speak with Judge Caprio, and he had agreed during a break. She entered with Madison beside her, and the change in the girl was immediately visible. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced with simple jeans and a modest sweater. No jewellery except small earrings. Hair pulled back in a practical ponytail like her mother's. Most notably, no phone in her hand. She walked beside her mother instead of behind her, and when they approached the bench, she met the judge's eyes with something that looked like respect. "Miss Martinez," Judge Caprio said with a slight smile, "I wasn't expecting to see you back so soon. I hope everything is all right." Sarah's face broke into a genuine smile. "Everything is more than all right, Your Honour. I wanted to update you on Madison's progress, and she wanted to say something herself." Judge Caprio nodded at Madison. "Go ahead." Madison took a breath, voice steady and clear. "Your Honour, I've completed 32 of my 40 hours at Sunset. I wanted to come tell you that it's been life-changing. I met a woman there, Mrs. Chen. She's 84 and no one visits her anymore. She worked 3 jobs her whole life to send her kids to college. When she talks about her life, about her struggles, I see my mum. I see what my mum is doing for me." Judge Caprio leaned back, expression pleased. "And what else have you learned?" Madison glanced at her mother before continuing. "I've learned that the stuff Dad buys me doesn't mean anything if it comes at Mum's expense. I blocked his wife on social media because she was always making comments about Mum not being able to afford things. And I've been helping more at home, doing dishes without being asked, helping with laundry, small stuff, but Mum notices." Sarah reached over and squeezed Madison's hand. "She's been wonderful, Your Honour. She even got a part-time job at the library to help with expenses. She wants to contribute now, instead of just take." Judge Caprio's eyes showed approval. "Madison, do you remember what I told you about punishment being an opportunity?" Madison nodded. "You said it's a chance to become someone better. And have you?" Madison's voice was firm. "I'm trying every day. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. That's all any of us can do." The judge stood, a gesture of respect that surprised both mother and daughter. "Miss Martinez, both of you, you came here weeks ago as 2 people who had lost their way with each other. You're leaving today as a family that's finding its way back. That's the best outcome this court could hope for." Sarah's eyes filled with tears again, but these were different. Tears of gratitude and relief. Judge Caprio had one final piece of wisdom. "Madison, the world is going to tell you that success is measured in money and possessions. Your mother has shown you the truth. Success is measured in character, in sacrifice, in love that doesn't quit, even when things are hard. Don't forget that lesson." Madison shook her head. "I won't, Your Honour. I promise." If stories like this remind you why values matter more than valuables, consider subscribing to Frederick Explains Court for more moments where justice becomes a teaching tool. As they turned to leave, Madison put her arm around her mother's shoulders and Sarah leaned into her daughter, the 2 of them walking out together in a way they hadn't in years. The courtroom watched them go, and when the door closed, Judge Caprio sat back down with a small, satisfied smile. This story isn't just about a disrespectful child or a struggling mother. It's about all of us and the values we choose to pass on. It's about remembering that the greatest wealth we can give our children isn't found in shopping bags or bank accounts. It's found in character, compassion, and the courage to be better than we were yesterday.